Hey friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I am crafting with the Hero Arts card kit of the month. And this is such a fun theme, this month's card kit. It comes with this beautiful stamp set, and it's Hero Arts does this so well. There are scenes that you can, it's kind of a layered stamping, and you can build up an entire scene, and it's just amazing. So this is a 6x8 stamp set, and I'm gonna actually create two versions of this scene, and I chose to use my Altenew stamp wheel because that way I can kind of just place the stamp once, and then I can rotate the wheel so that a different portion of the wheel will pick up that stamp. And when I go to stamp out the second version of this scene, I can leave all of my stamps here, and I know that they're going to be perfectly positioned if I put my paper in the exact same corner and everything. And so it just makes the process go a little bit faster, especially if you make cards like en masse and you kind of want to make the same card but multiple times over. This is definitely one of the things that can speed up that process, because you don't have to continually like peel the stamp off, position it back. You can just get a completed card stamped out and then move on to the next one. So I like it for that reason. And the scene that I'm creating is kind of cool. It kind of has the sky, it's got the landscape, and it has the road. So one of the things about this month's card kit is that it's got this road trip theme to it, which I think is really fun. So there's this stamp set. It's got a coordinating die set to go with it, so that you can cut out the sentiments that are in the stamp set, and as well you can actually cut out the scene elements as separate layers. So if you wanted to make this dimensional, there's border stamps or border dies, I mean, that allow you to actually cut out the various scene elements, like the mountain sky, for example, like the ground, the foreground, and then the background and stuff. So it's kind of nice. You can stamp it all flat if you want, like I'm doing here, or you can stamp it, die cut it, and then add some layers to it even. And I don't use it, but there's lots of little extras that you can add to your landscape. So you can make this a desert scene. I'm choosing to make this sort of like more lush greens, but you could turn this into more of a desert scene and stamp some extra cactus. There's also some just little shrubbery, some, things like that. There's even like a road sign, which I thought was so cute. It's got such great attention to detail. And then you have a crescent moon and a full moon, or that could be the sun if you want. So there's lots in this stamp set. Now, the two ways that I'm stamping it out is daylight, kind of, you're driving during the day, and then take the same sort of area that we're driving through here and make it more like sunset nighttime. And the idea of what I'm going to make is really fun. So I'm also going to use the standalone die set that comes in this month's card kit. It's amazing. There's actually two die sets. There's one that's the interior of like the dashboard of a car. So unique, so different. I don't think I've seen anything like that. And then the second set is super fun. So it's got like arms and legs so that you can create a scene where those arms and legs are the driver and passenger in the car. And then there's accessories that you can have in the car. So you could have like the little air freshener hanging from the rear view mirror. You can have the fuzzy dice hanging from the rear view mirror. You can have little cassette tapes in the car. So it's a lot of fun. Okay, so these little scenes, I trimmed them both down, and they measure roughly 2.5 by 4.5. Now here's my thinking. I'm on this a little bit of a kick of making shadow boxes lately, because I got the We Are Makers shadow box punch. And what I was thinking of doing was, hey, what about making an interchangeable scene for the shadow box? And so it's kind of working backwards. Like if my scene is 2.5 by 4.5, I want actually for some of that to be covered. And so I tried to work backwards to what space do I want visible. And that brought me to that first number, 2 by 4. And then if you want to work your way towards the final sheet of paper that you need to cut, then you just keep on adding some numbers to it. So whatever you want visible, add 1 inch in both directions. That's the finished shadow box size. Once you have your finished shadow box side, add 4 inches to each, the width and the height. And that's the size of the piece of paper that you want to cut. So I'll say that again. So whatever scene you want to create, whatever visible area you want to see, start there, add 1 inch, and that's going to be your finished shadow box side, including the walls of the shadow box. Once you have your finished shadow box size, add 4 inches in each direction, and that is the size cardstock that you need to start with if you want it to be finished to those dimensions. So what I decided was I don't want for it to just be the scene. I want to add some of the car with it too. So I'll let you know what I finally ended up at. But meanwhile, I've been assembling the car pieces, and I'm using cardstock from cut cardstock, but I realized I need to shop their site again because I don't really have good skin tone cardstock from them. And so what I did instead was I just used my alcohol markers and I colored in the die cut with my markers. So that's always a really fun option if you don't have the color cardstock that you want or need. You can always just do this. You can always just color it in yourself, and that way you can have it be whatever you want. And depending on whether you're somebody who has like a lot of different markers, maybe that means that you don't really need a lot of colored cardstock because you can always color up your own. So, and it would be like a perfect match if you were coloring other elements as well. I sometimes do this with ink pads. I'll ink up a panel, but I don't often alcohol marker my white cardstock. But I feel like if we're talking skin tones, it's kind of the only thing that I've invested in color-wise with Copics. So that's sort of my go-to whenever I do anything that has skin tones. So, and it doesn't even take that long to do either. You don't have to be super perfect about it. I never am when I do coloring, so this is no different. But it is a lot of fun to still try to add some of the shading and everything. So I am trying to still, because I just can't help it. I am still trying to add some of, the midtones, the shadows, and the highlights. But that's definitely something that you could do for all of the die cuts. Everything else I just used. I just used solid color cardstock. So once that's all done, I've got everything kind of assembled and ready to go. Now I'll I'll start to get what I need for the actual shadow box. So if 4 inches is kind of the maximum that you can get with I also want to maximize my US letter size paper, 8.5 by 11. So what I cut mine down to is 8.5 by 9. And then ultimately that's going to allow me to create a box with a finish size of 4 by 4.5. You just subtract 4 inches from the paper that you start with. And I think that's going to be plenty. So that's going to allow me to have a little bit of the car showing and also have the scene. And the idea is that I want to be able to put this shadow box together so that I can actually swap the scene and have it be sometimes show the daylight driving during the day, and then I could take that whole scene out and then reverse it to the backside where it's showing the sunset or dusk. I just like the idea of it. I think it's fun. And a more practical use of this might be maybe you have a shadow box that you use to display photos, and you might like to actually be able to swap out the photo that you have in the shadow box. And so instead of, keeping one in there that's fixed and on display all the time, you could swap it out and change it out throughout the year. And so I did learn something with doing this, and so I do have a bit of an oopsies moment, and so I'll tell you all about that when we get there. But basically, I'm trying to just really make sure that I can see, everything that I want to see is going to be visible. So I'm trying to figure out how much of the car do I actually want to keep in the scene, because there's actually quite a lot of the car. You could actually, I didn't even die cut the whole thing, and I still trimmed off some. So I've got my scene positioned here, and I'll talk through what I did, but I actually ended up doing this a second time, and I'll tell you why when I get there. But what I'm gonna do is trim a line at the top. And I'm not cutting that whole thing off. I just cut a slit that is long enough so that I can slide this scene through that slit, because I want to be able to pull this in and out, and that's the part that is going to be interchangeable. So I have to have a way to actually not secure this down and actually be able to pull it in and out. And speaking of that, I also, when I trimmed it, I didn't think about the fact that you would need something to be able to grab onto it, because the visible part of the scene has to, it's in the middle of the shadow box, and so there's like that 1/2 inch of the wall, that covers it. So that's the first thing. Don't trim this all the way off. It'll save you an extra layer of cardstock. Now, that's not the end of the world, because all I ended up doing was gluing both of the scenes to this scrap piece of cardstock. But if you're going to use scrap, just make sure that it doesn't have anything that you that could be visible. That's why I had to peel this all off, because there's that extra inking that I trimmed off, and that would have been visible. Well, there were so many mistakes. It took a while to get to the end of this one, but I made it, friends. I made it to the end. And I think at the end of the day, the project turned out kind of nice. I do like where I landed, but I did have to make the shadow box a second time, because and you'll see it in a moment. It'll make more sense, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense why should have thought of that earlier. But that's part of the fun of just discovering these things as I go, so that I stumble upon the mistakes, and if it's something that you want to try, hopefully it helps you avoid the oopsies when you go to make this project. So I've got both the day scene and the sunset scene, and I had to attach both to a bit of cardstock, so that made it kind of thick. So it makes it hard to slide in and out of this slot. So that's why I'm actually essentially trimming away the score line at the back of the shadow box so that it's roughly maybe about a 16th of an inch or so to accommodate the extra thickness of the layers there. Now that might have been avoidable had I actually not trimmed off these scenes. I wouldn't have needed that middle paper, because I could have just trimmed one to leave it long enough to pull out, and then just glued the other one to the other scene to the back of that. So that would have, I think, worked out just fine. Now, here's the thing, and you kind of have to treat this shadow box, if you want to be able to pull something out of it like I do, you kind of have to treat it like it is an interactive card. So you want to always be testing the moving parts of it. And that's where I went wrong. So I started to put glue to glue down the sides. And guess what? My scene needs to be able to move there. So let's undo that. I wish it was that easy. I actually had to make the whole thing over again. And the other bit of that I learned was, if you're going to cut a slit, maybe reinforce that cut line. So I put some Tyvek that I just adhered. This is Tyvek wristbands. I use it in my mini album making a lot. And Tyvek is tear resistant. So it helps so that if you're reinforcing that cut the slit that I put in, it just helps it so that that slit doesn't continue to widen, as you pull the scene in and out. So it just reinforces it. Now, the other bit that I learned just by doing this the one time is that when you roll this wall, I'll call it a wall, it's the top wall, when you roll it up, since it can't get glued down like it would normally get glued down, if you glued it down, then you wouldn't be able to slide the scene in and out. So it can't get glued down. And what that means is that if you leave an open flap, it makes it really hard to pull the scene in, pull the scene out. It's okay, but sliding it in might be a little bit difficult because you've got that extra layer of cardstock that might have it catch a little bit. And so I just added a little bit of extra paper. I kept it thin, just paper. And that way I can actually adhere it down, but it's not getting adhered down to where the scene needs to pass through. It's actually adhered down to itself, really. And so that just helps so that you actually make it a little bit smoother to be able to pull the scene in and out. And so that was another, and that's just a bit of like maybe 3/4 inch cardstock or paper, really. I just use paper, not even cardstock. Keep it nice and light. And I glued it to the glue tab and to the section of the section of the wall that would be essentially the top of the shadow box. So that's now secured, and that way when you slide the scene in from the top, it doesn't hit that extra lip. Then when I'm gluing these side walls, I'm being careful because I marked a line for where my scene is going to slide, and I'm being careful not to put glue anywhere that my scene needs to move. So that was the big thing, that was the big oopsies from the first one. So you know, we learn, we do these things, we learn, and then that's how we get creative, is by just trying stuff out and then figuring it out as we go. So that was the toughest part, was making the shadow box, like adapting it so that it can be it can take an interchangeable scene at the back there. Totally worth it, I think. I think this is a lot of fun. I could see a lot of practical applications, especially of using different photos, and that way you can display different photos throughout the year. I think that's a really cool practical application. This one's just for fun because I kind of like the idea that they've been driving all day. They've been driving all day. It's so long that you know, the nice sunny skies have now turned to like more of a sunset. So so I kind of really, I like how this turned out. The car is super adorable. It's got so many fun details, which I think just make it really amazing. And we've got like the vents, you know, for the AC, and the air. We've got details for the radio. There's the steering wheel, of course, and I just love all the options for things that you can hang off of the rear view mirror. I didn't actually use them on this card though. I just think it's really cute, but I didn't actually use any of them. I think on my next one I will though. And then I also decided, again, last minute, but I'm glad I could still fit it in there. I was still able to punch out a little thumb notch from the back of the shadow box. And if you've never made one of these shadow boxes, I have several videos now because I've been making loads of them. And so this really is just to kind of give you the idea for how to adapt it if you want to make an interchangeable scene version. But I've got a basic tutorial and a first look tutorial of the punch board, which I gotta say I've really enjoyed crafting with. I like it a lot. I think it's a lot of fun, and I got mine off of scrapbook.com, so it's really easy to pick up if it's something you're interested in trying out. But yeah, it's if you've seen my previous videos, you know I've been crafting with it a lot. But yeah, I'm just gonna add now with the arms and legs. Again, there's so many different options because they do have clothing. If you wanted, you could add, you know, some shorts and a shirt sleeve to to these body parts. So there are clothing options. So if you wanted, you could definitely add that detail as well. I kind of like thinking that they're doing like a summer road trip. So they're just in shorts and a t-shirt. So plus there's not a lot of their arms and legs showing, so I think it's just fine that I don't have the clothes on them. So check it out, super cute. And then you can take the scene out from the back and you can switch it from night to day, day to night. I think it's just a lot of fun. This I made just for fun because I think it's kind of cute. But I love the idea of putting different photos and making the photos swappable. I'm going to leave links to everything in the description box below if you want to check it out. Thanks for checking out this video, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.